and we'll get to that in a second. But I started out working as a broker, and back then it was great because 21 years old, to come in, you take the Series 7. It literally took 2 weeks to study and pass it. And then they hand you, back then they handed you, at least in the commodity division, E.F. Hutton, this gave me a book on technical analysis of stock trends by McGee and Edwards. He told me, read that. I read it. Go home, read it again. I read it. Go home, read it again. I read it. He goes, you're ready to trade. You're ready to open accounts. So I'd say within 4 weeks, I was trying to talk my parents' friends into opening accounts and let me trade. And at 21, it was literally hilarious. But that's how I started. And then ultimately, as I started trading these accounts, the guy that I worked for that originally hired me was the greatest cotton speculator in the world. His name was Eli Tull, so he'd sent me to New York City. I guess I was up here for 6 months working on the floor. Then I went back to New Orleans. That's another long story. Came back to New York. And during that period of time, I enjoyed so much the interaction with all my customers. I've always been, I think, a sociable person, so I enjoyed that so much. That we were making money and talking to them all the time. But then after a while, I realized I could do so much better if I just traded for myself, because the commissions back then were, and this is going to make you really excited, were $90 a contract. Can you imagine that?
No.
And what is it now?
You could trade $40,000 for $90 today.
Yes, exactly. So it was $90 a contract, and I realized I could go trade for myself and clear. I think even then clearing was still 30 or 40 cents a contract, and just do. And I started doing that for myself, and I did really.
So you were successful from the start?
Pretty much. You know, I had 2 phenomenal learning periods where I lost everything. Like I had $10,000 and went down to zero. And then I made back like $20,000 and then went down to zero. And I remember...
Are you just using these low numbers so we can understand?
No. This is when you're 22 years of age and it's 1978 or 9. That's just, a gargantuan amount of money. And I remember my father coming to me on the 3rd time and said, you've got to get in something safe like real estate.
Exactly. Lending.
I said, no, I'm going to stick with this. And the rest is history. But I guess the point was, it was so funny. I guess by 1980, I was doing pretty well. And in 1980, my father kept going, you've got to do something respectable. So I applied to Harvard Business School and got in. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go up there, and what is this place going to teach me? I was already I was probably making a couple of $1 million a year trading my own account, which was a fortune back then. And the weekend before I was supposed to go, I was loading up the U-Haul to drive to Boston and just said, this is crazy. They're not going to teach me anything about this, and this may disappear. And so I never went and continued trading. But I started my hedge fund. To get back to the point, the one thing about trading for yourself, I got so lonely. I really did. I was doing real well, but I was so lonely. And back then, the cotton exchange closed at 3. I'd go home I'd do all my charts and stuff, go home at 4:30, watch Star Trek, and that was kind of my life.